Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, presented by Coors Light. Go from full time to game time. Coors Light, made to chill. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined on this dreary Tuesday morning or afternoon. It's afternoon. Yeah, what am I doing?
The show starts at 2:00, man.
Yeah, it's morning on the West Coast at least.
Did you read the rundown today?
I'm reading off the rundown.
Oh, thank you.
He didn't get past what time the show starts.
Did you know there's a promo? We're giving away some Raptors tickets at the end of this segment. So tune in. No Adam Silver, but we got gold today. We got golden ticket. That's my contribution for segment one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, guys.
I'm joined by co-host Alex Wong, Blake Murphy. How you guys doing?
I'm good.
We're good, man. I just talked to you.
Yeah, it's ugly outside. Fun.
Should I host?
You might need to host.
Okay, I got it, man. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Small talk.
Yeah,
Small talk.
I don't know. The in-season tournament continues tonight. Obviously,
that's right.
it should be a fun matchup.
Yeah. Have we seen the Magic Court yet, or is this the first time?
No, this is the debut of the Magic Court. They started with consecutive road games in the in-season tournament.
Okay.
So
Tough road.
Can you win on
Yeah.
a rainy Tuesday in Orlando? Because this is kind of what it's like right now.
Well, it won't be rainy in Orlando, I don't think. So they have that in their favor.
We'll just sit out this. Just sit
All
out this whole segment.
Can I restart the show?
Anyway, so today at sportsnet.ca, I wrote about the similarities between these teams and what they're building.
Yeah.
Also, like Orlando is kind of the site. This is something Michael Grange wrote about yesterday. The site of where everything kind of fell apart completely last year. They lost back-to-back in Orlando. Yes. It was part of a 6-game losing streak. It was the peak of the rumblings about something going on with Scottie and there being a rift in the locker room and things like that. On top of which, the Magic are pretty good. They're the only team in the league that are better on defense and worse on offense than the Raptors.
Let's go.
So they're kind
More
of like, this
Raptors.
is going to be like a rock fight for sure. But it's also, I'll ask you guys this. If the Raptors did not win tonight, it would be mathematically implausible for them to be a wild card team in the in-season tournament. You'd have to go, you'd have to win 2, you'd have to win by big margins, you'd have to get a ton of luck in other pools. Is tonight a must-win game?
You're saying Kevin Garnett, anything is plausible?
Yeah. Because I don't want to say it's impossible because there are some bizarre scenarios where
tonight is a must-win, and it's gonna kind of take the hype off the in-season tournament for me if they're like pretty much eliminated.
Yeah, I mean, it turns Friday's visit from DeMar and the Bulls into just a game.
Yeah. So the in-season tournament is working because, like, a random Tuesday Raptors-Magic game, I don't know how much I'm excited about. Tonight, yeah, I want the Raptors to get this win more than usual.
Should we dust?
Excited you're going to see it from the Sportsnet work party.
Yo, I'm a company man. Why are you giving me a hard time for being a company man? Happy 25th to Sportsnet.
That's correct.
Should we dust off the Kyle Lowryism from 2016 that they got to treat this like a Game 7? That was the year, by the way, they won 2 7-game series and lost in 6.
Yes.
20 games. I believe 8 of them Kyle Lowry said they had to treat like a Game 7.
He didn't treat Game 1 against Miami like a Game 7.
But they're all a Game 7. Are we treating tonight like a Game 7, Will?
Guys,
it's like a Game 6.
you have both sat in the booth with me. All right, Raptors-Pistons on the weekend was a Game 7 for me. You know, there's just no chill. No, listen, like, yeah, you need to win tonight to keep any hopes alive. It really, if they had actually beaten the Celtics on last Friday,
it'd be hype.
We would be really, really hyped for this scenario. But regardless, I think it's just a good matchup. And I mean, look, we'll definitely talk a lot about Raptors-Magic. In the meantime, though, there are some actual Raptors news items. So
you don't want to set this up for me? We'll talk more about the Magic later on. Jesse Mermuys, assistant coach of the Orlando Magic, is on with us in the second segment.
How deep into the rundown did you read today?
Eric Koreen will join us at 3 o'clock.
No, don't tell him. I wanted him to tee up the rest of the show.
All right.
I bet you he doesn't even know what's happening in the second hour.
I know what's happening.
And then we'll preview the game properly and, the last segment as we always
do you remember
here.
Between the Lines? You know that segment?
I do know that segment.
That's on its way.
It's my favorite segment.
That's
I hope you're giving away tickets today. It is red font and highlighted yellow in the doc. You better not.
We literally put it in gold for you.
Yeah, we're about 17 minutes from giving away those tickets. But Will, what you're trying to set up is there is Raptor news that is not related to the product on the court. In fact, the Knicks would argue it is so tangential to the basketball side of the NBA that they don't want federal judges to throw their lawsuit against the Raptors out of court. We heard the other week that the Raptors had responded and basically said this is a waste of the court's time. The NBA should handle it. Today, the Knicks come back, or the other day, the Knicks come back, but we now have details about it via ESPN's Baxter Holmes, via our pal Fred Katz as well, that the Knicks have replied. they are seeking more than $10 million in damages as part of this. And that's part of their argument for why the NBA shouldn't handle this, because in the NBA Constitution, you can only go up to 10 million in terms of damages. So they want to go outside of that. They want more than 10 million. They think Adam Silver and Larry Tannenbaum, because Tannenbaum is the chair of the board, there's a conflict of interest there, since Tannenbaum's technically Silver's boss that way, and Silver would be seeing over this. And then there's also some James Dolan kicking his feet and screaming and throwing a tantrum. Yeah. Will, where do you want to start with this one? I imagine you have a lot of thoughts that we've mentioned before and amount to the Knicks are going to Knicks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the secondary part that you mentioned there with James Dolan kicking his feet, like this is very clear. He also has stepped down from attending the Board of Governors. That does not mean that the Knicks will not vote on behalf of their franchise. Someone else will do it, but he's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. It's clear that the league doesn't value my opinion, and therefore I'm just going to not participate in this anymore. He also, among, the other things that were reported in Baxter Holmes' piece, it was also put in there that, James Dolan was the only one who voted against the sale of the Hornets over from Michael Jordan to this new group that is going to own the Hornets. He was the only one who voted against the WNBA's expansion into San Francisco. What does that even have to do with James Dolan? I have no idea. Or the Knicks.
No, they're spite votes.
And then he's also like, yeah, I'm also not a big fan of revenue sharing. Guess what? I don't want to pay my bills either.
Yeah, this is one we've heard for a long time. That as a big market team, James Dolan, by the way, James Dolan just kind of like was born into this empire. He did not, bootstrap it from nothing all the way up, but thinks that because the Knicks are in the biggest market and because they are, if not the highest revenue team, second to the Lakers. I can't remember the exact rankings last time we saw them, but his argument is basically like revenue sharing is too extreme. We shouldn't have to float these small market franchises. No acknowledgement of the fact that the league's biggest revenue generator is a national TV deal that requires lots of teams because you need the games to sell the product. He wouldn't be the first billionaire
to be against some elements of socialism. So I think this is just par for the course.
Yeah.
No, but seriously though, he's just like, it reveals to you that he is really trying to spite the league and trying to stick a finger in the eye of the Raptors, of the league. And I think it just describes his general pattern. I think the Raptors clearly don't take this that seriously because they still employ Azzotan.
And Noah Lewis and Darko.
Yeah, they're just around the team all the time. Well, I shouldn't see Azzotan, but I mean, I think he works in like a more backroom setting maybe.
Yeah, I haven't physically seen him, but we never
Masai, I think, confirmed
all
on
of the
media day that he's still
reporting has
employed.
been that he's still
Yeah, so the easiest thing for the Raptors to have done would be to have let him go at least, right? It's like no offense to his job.
Although I do wonder then if you let him go, if that's more evidence for the Knicks to be like, look, if they did nothing wrong, why would they let him go?
Where were they accusing Azzotan of taking the data again?
Yes,
it's where is it? The data was it on
in Synergy?
Synergy. So he's Synergy Mamba. Azzotan is Synergy Mamba.
By the way, Woj had a piece, or Baxter Holmes had a piece at the bottom of his reporting today, which was mostly on this Dolan side, that it is, and we knew this, but it's interesting to see it as the out sentence in a really well-reported national story, that it's generally accepted around the NBA that everyone who leaves a job does this and takes their own video, their own compilations, their own work. Because again, as we've talked about a bunch, the stuff that's on Synergy is not that deep. And if an NBA team was relying only on Synergy or relying heavily on Synergy as anything other than like a video organizing tool, they are way behind. Like that data is just, that information is not at the level that other NBA teams have. It's not that big a deal.
It's like if you break up with somebody and then your ex is like, hey, actually, I don't want you to use the playlist, our Spotify playlist anymore.
Yeah.
That was our thing.
Was that something that happened to you personally, or is this an analogy?
So I have not, I've not had the playlist thing happen, but I have had the I'm going to change my password because you're messing up my algorithm by sharing my Spotify account.
That's different.
I've had never mind. So, I think this is all.
Give me back my cassette tapes.
I think it's pretty.
I was like, give me my home.
God damn it.
Oh, my God.
I have been James Dolan. No, I think, Masai said on Media Day, because that was the first question that he was asked when he came to the podium. And he's like, there's only been one time that, an NBA team has sued another NBA team. And I think it goes to your point, Blake, like, it's generally just like accepted that like, oh, when an employee leaves, goes to another team, they're going to take some of this data with them. And clearly James Dolan, wants to just kind of push this to the limit in terms of making it, as difficult as possible. Which in that
he wants to annoy Larry Tannenbaum. He wants to annoy Masai. He wants to annoy Adam Silver.
Which in that regard I respect. I don't. I mean, ultimately, I don't think this is gonna end up going anywhere. Like, I don't think the Knicks are gonna get this money that they're asking for.
Well, here's the thing: if they had actually gone in terms of the purpose of what would help the Knicks as a franchise, if you go through the league and Adam Silver rules strongly in favor of the Knicks,
you can get a draft pick or something.
Get a draft pick.
Yeah,
you can get some money on top of the draft picks as well. But he wants to take this into the court specifically only to get money out of this.
Yeah,
which I don't think really benefits the Knicks.
Yeah. Well, he's just trying to be the most annoying as possible to the Raptors, basically.
Yeah, but I also think that it's like for the league as a whole, like, you don't want these sort of in-house disputes brought up in a really public way where it's like it just makes the league look a little bit worse.
Yeah, like it's not quite a slap lawsuit, and some states have anti-slap legislation, which is basically like
that?
It's I forget the acronym, but it's basically
this is Darko.
No, this guy got an acronym.
Yeah, no, SLAP, SLAPP.
Oh, yeah,
it's basically
Slap
like
wizard.
You are like they're saying, for example, the X lawsuit against Media Matters. They filed it in Texas because they don't have anti-slap legislation. Basically, it's a frivolous lawsuit that is intended to be like, don't even participate. Like you don't have the legal legs to do this. You don't want and. So this isn't quite that, but it's definitely a PR play. It's a, hey, NBA, hey, Adam Silver, you don't want this in the news constantly. You don't want this hanging over games and the season. And we are in every filing going to try to drag the integrity of the league and the integrity of the Raptors through the mud, because that's the key point here, I think, for Dolan, is because you're right, Will. If this was about the basketball impact, I mean, first of all, you're probably going to have a tough time making the case that the damages are more than $10 million once a court knows what synergy actually is. But if this was purely a basketball case, you'd be asking for draft picks to make you whole. Hey, they hurt us from a basketball perspective. Make us whole. Give us a second. Give us a couple seconds. This is just about Dolan's pocketbook. So it follows a big pattern of that. And all of this other stuff, well, I'm not going to vote anymore. I'm going to send general counsel on my behalf. I'm going to vote no on other things that are otherwise unanimous. So you can't say they're unanimously approved and things like that. All of this is just aimed at Dolan spiting Adam Silver and kind of, like, a lot of the quotes in here, a lot of the stuff in the filing is questioning the league's integrity too. Like, hey, I no longer believe in the board. I no longer want to participate. I no longer have faith in Adam Silver as a steward of all 30 owners because of X, Y, and Z. It's a PR play.
Yeah, well, but here's the problem though. No one's taking this seriously. Like Dolan might think this is like a good PR thing for him, and he's trying to embarrass the league and stuff. But like, absolutely nobody is taking this seriously. Like, nobody's sitting here and thinking the integrity of the NBA has been compromised.
No, I think
really not one smart person.
There would maybe be a tiny bit of eyebrows raised that, hey, Larry Tannenbaum is technically Adam Silver's boss through the way the league's constitution
operates. So can Adam Silver not make any decisions about the Raptors then? That's ridiculous.
Right, exactly.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Also, like, the other owners could just be like, yo, Larry, step down, and we'll put another chair. Like, he's still one of 30.
Yeah, isn't Larry actually stepping down too?
I don't know about that or the timeline.
I don't think
I don't know about a timeline for that. Anyway, this is all nonsense. And yes, the James Dolan takeaway, I don't mean that the claims are necessarily nonsense, but the entire process is nonsense. And I think Jason Conception tweeted it best earlier today when he's like, all that this James Dolan stuff of like, I'm not participating anymore, the board doesn't represent me, etc. Basically, it comes down to everyone has been telling you for 25 years they don't like you and don't want to hear from you. And you're now, for the wrong reasons and accidentally, being like, fine, I'll go away. I'll give everyone what they want, and you won't hear from James Dolan anymore.
Yeah, I mean, look, listen, like, it's not a flattering thing, but I also do wonder in terms of like how this affects going forward, employees in the NBA changing teams. Like, the NBA largely employs the same people, and they will go from franchise to franchise if they need to, and maybe escalate roles or whatever. But if this is the case, then like it's gonna probably put definitely everyone on alert. It's definitely one of those things. It's like you don't want to, cross this boundary for essentially everyone. Got a little bit more careful about data safety or whatever. But I think too, it's just like if the Knicks are gonna act in this way, like, how's that going to affect Knicks employees who want to look to make the next move in their career?
Yeah. Well, they're literally under surveillance at the arenas.
Well, that's too. So
I mean, I don't think this actually affects it.
I just hope it doesn't hurt the Raptors.
Yeah, for all
the
the Azotams out there, be careful when you move jobs.
That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the next Azotam.
And that's part of what the Raptors said in their counterfiling was that, like, hey, this is, not only is this frivolous and silly, but also, like, this has the potential to affect other people's ability to take new jobs and stuff like it's anti-competitive, it's anti-competition, and it's like labor freedom.
Damn, get Garrett Temple on the line, man.
Garrett Temple might be on the line. I don't know, man.
They need to play Usher, You Remind Me when they do Discovery in court or something.
Oh,
I want this court case to play out with the Raptors game ops in the background.
We still have to get Fred Katz in here and do a mock trial.
Yeah, we still have to do that.
All right.
You got the Athletic login, I got the briefcase.
Yeah, you got
maybe some of us still use their Synergy login from when they were at the Athletic.
No,
Who knows?
Please,
Who knows?
Please don't
Please
become
don't
become the next
Come on,
Azotam, please.
the New York Times will become litigious over Rogers.
Litigious Mamba, James Dolan.
No.
All right, what's next? What's next on this grab bag?
I also wanted to check in a little bit on the 905 because I have yet to like fully tap into like a whole game yet. But
0-6?
They're 0-6.
Yeah.
They're the worst team in the league right now, record-wise. I think the Ignite are 0-5. So I have to ask the 905 specialist, Blake Murphy, like, what's going on?
Yeah, how's the 06 Mafia doing?
Yeah, it's bad.
Damn.
They have only even been competitive in one of these games.
Okay.
It's pretty rough. But here's
Right.
what it comes down to is Javon Friedman Liberty has played one game.
Okay.
Ron Harper Jr. has played 2 games. Marquise Noel has missed 2 games. Justice Winslow hasn't played yet. On Saturday, they had to sign 2 emergency players who, because they didn't have enough, they only had 6 healthy players.
Okay.
They only had 6 players available. And this is without the Raptors even having anyone up. Like Ron Harper Jr. played on Sunday, but this was Saturday when he could have still been with the team. So they only had 6 players. What they had to do, they signed a guy named Robert Johnson and another guy named Isaac Johnson. And basically that game was in Greensboro. And the process is they have to get doctors, like a doctor's note saying, hey, these guys aren't available. We only have 6 players available. Then the G League says, hey, you can add guys to the roster, but they have to be players who are already in the G League player pool and either have already taken the league physical or have time to take the physical.
Okay.
So Robert Johnson was someone they had an eye on generally as like a potential player pool addition later. He's actually staying with the team. They cut Keith Williams after, so Robert Johnson can stay with them. They like him a little bit better. But Isaac Johnson had to take an Uber from Charlotte to Greensboro the day of the game and like make it just in time so the 905 would have enough players
the player
to
on
play
the roster? Wow,
so that they
that's
would have
crazy.
enough players to play.
Okay.
Because like as much as I joke about it sometimes, like they can't just like tag one of us
of
in
course,
if the game's in Mississauga. You have to be in the player pool, paperwork
for
filed, physicals passed and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it's been for them. They've only had 3 players out of 13 on that roster be available for every game.
Man.
That's how rough it's been. Now,
Okay,
look,
yeah.
they're not, we've seen G League teams in Toronto and other places survive this before, right? Like Nick Nurse loves talking about how this is what it looks like. But when you don't have your 5 best players for like 3 games in a row, nobody's really going to be able to do that. They haven't been able to get into a flow. The point guard play is so important to organizing a G League team. And Marquise Noel has like not been, he's been up and down. Yeah. And one of the games he played, he left at like halftime with a groin thing. So they just haven't had bodies. It's been pretty rough. And I have trouble evaluating it until, like, again, Javon Friedman Liberty's played 1 game. Ron Harper Jr.'s played 2 games. Justice Winslow hasn't played yet. It's really hard to evaluate what's going on when they're signing they're Uber Eatsing emergency players.
Yeah. That situation sounds really dire. And I do agree with you. It is hard to make any judgments on that group or anybody around the group.
Like, am I going to say, well, Makur Maker's been, he's underwhelmed a little bit? Or am I going to think, well, the center has had nobody to give him post-entry passes or run pick and roll with?
Yeah.
Moji's the only guy who's, like, really played well.
Yeah, I saw on Chris Boucher's stories.
Really?
6 blocks. Sorry.
Watching G League on IG stories.
I mean, listen, like it's been difficult. It really has been difficult to watch it from afar. Or I guess in this case, not watch it from afar. But yeah, wow, damn, that's too bad.
It's rough. Now they don't play again until Saturday, so they got a little bit of time to get healthy here. Like I don't think like Ron Harper played on yesterday, so he's close. Javon Freeman Liberty's close. I don't think the Marquise Noel one is too long term. They just traded for Kobe Simmons, if you remember him from Charlotte, and a couple cups of coffee around the league. He hasn't signed in yet, but they have his rights now whenever he's ready to go. So hopefully more bodies coming, but it's been ugly so far.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, with the G League. If anyone doesn't know this, they run kind of a split season,
Yes,
like we've talked about with the in-season tournament. So you could start the season like 0-14, and then the schedule resets after the G League Showcase.
Right.
And you get to run a 34 or 36 game regular season. I forget it's 34 and 16 or 36 and 14.
And then what counts for the playoffs?
The second one.
Oh, what?
Yeah, the first chunk of the season gets you into the G League Showcase tournament bracket. Like everyone plays in the G League Showcase. It's in Orlando this year. I owe Orlando an apology because I said it was in Vegas because it's almost always in Vegas. It's in Orlando this year. But yeah, the schedule kind of resets after 14 or 16 games. So if you're the 905, you're probably already looking at this 0-6 start and be
it's a bit of a wash.
Let's build for the longer part of the regular season that gets going in late December.
The 905 can go 0-82, and Blake Murphy will look at you like this gravy.
Kobe Simmons.
They only play
Mamba.
50. They
I
only play 50 games, but yes, they can go 0-82. All right. Do you want to talk about a team that might actually win and give some tickets away for them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, to celebrate the launch of the in-season tournament this year, the Toronto Raptors have announced the Raptors Golden Ticket Contest. The Golden Ticket Contest will give a lucky fan the chance to win Raptors tickets for life. To get fans excited about this awesome contest, we'll be giving away one of the brand new Gold Raptors City Edition uniforms in today's show. To enter for your chance to win this jersey, text Golden Ticket, that's 2 words, Golden and Ticket, to 590-590. Again, that's Golden Ticket to 590-590. For details around how you can enter the Golden Ticket Contest to win tickets for life, visit Raptors.com or follow the Raptors on Instagram and X, a.k.a. Twitter. You can watch tonight's Raptors in-season tournament matchup against the Orlando Magic with coverage beginning at 6:30 Eastern on Sportsnet and Sportsnet 1. Stream it on Sportsnet Plus or listen to the game on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. And I'll be on the post-game show, obviously.
No, you're on the pregame show.
Well, I'm on both.
Oh.
Because I do the post-game show anyway.
Oh, the post-game radio. But you're on pregame television for
I'm
the
on
first
pregame
time
television.
this year. So for if anyone wants to check that out.
Radio, so.
Yeah.
Mom, tune in to watch Will pregame.
So the pregame show starts at 6:30 on Sportsnet and Sportsnet 1. Your segment will probably be about 6:45 or 6:50. But you'll be helping preview the game.
Salute to Blake for giving me like all the advice on this because it's the first time I will be doing, I think, one of these pregame.
Yeah, you look good today, brother.
Oh, wow, thank you.
I mean, you look good most days. So I want to just,
Appreciate you.
I entered for Golden Ticket. Yeah,
you
also, I thought we were.
It's so funny because my last text of 590 was Siakam swirl.
Oh, you were trying to win the McDonald's?
I thought we were. When I saw Golden Ticket, I thought we were giving away tickets, not a jersey, but a jersey's cool too.
Yeah, but it's also a chance. I guess this is like a contest to win. Man,
season
Raptors tickets for life is kind of crazy, man.
Yeah.
What's the cash payout option?
Yo, whoever wins, can we get their email as well? Let's give them 2 tickets to the Sport Media game on Saturday too. Let's put 2 more on that.
All right. Let's take a break and let's get to know the Magic a little bit and reminisce about when the 905 were good with Jesse Mermuys. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah,
let's do it. Text Golden Ticket to 590-590. Okay, we're going to take that break. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Raptors Show. I'm Blake Murphy, Will Lou, a.k.a. Willy Wonka, giving away Golden Ticket stuff before the break. To be clear, you can text Golden Ticket to 590-590 to win a jersey, the new Gold Raptor City Edition uniform. And as part of this Golden Ticket contest, that is a larger contest the Raptors have been doing on social media, at games, and here through us, you get put in for a chance to win Raptors tickets for life. This particular giveaway, just for a Gold City Edition uniform. I shouldn't say just. That's a pretty good get. You could wear it to an in-season tournament game on Friday, perhaps. The Raptors will continue the in-season tournament tonight against the Orlando Magic at 7 o'clock on Sportsnet. I got the chance the other day to talk at length with Jesse Mermuys, who is the lead assistant under Jamal Mosley with the Orlando Magic. He is formerly of the Toronto Raptors. He was a player development coach here in Toronto for years and then became the first ever head coach of Raptors 905. Got to catch up with him earlier this week. This is that interview. Jesse Mermuys, Magic assistant coach.
Joined now by Magic assistant coach Jesse Mermuys. Jesse, what's going on, man? This is quite the office setup out overlooking the court. You got some good shelf space there. You're living.
Oh, man, this is a beautiful facility. I'm very fortunate to be a part of it.
Is that in Orlando, or is that out where your G League team is?
No, this is in Orlando. This is literally like basically right across the street from Amway Center.
Sweet.
And it's state of the art and has every bell and whistle you could think of.
Yeah, you only would have got like a quick taste of the OVO Athletic Center when you were in Toronto, right? Like that just would, I think that opened in the February before you left.
Yeah, I missed it. Yep.
Damn. Okay. Well, I want to talk about your Magic, and obviously Raptors are playing the Magic on Tuesday, so we can get to know that team a little bit. But I wanted to go through some of your career for Raptors fans who either don't know or don't remember or do remember, and just want to hear what you've been up to since you were the 905 head coach. So
Yes.
you started coaching at like 20, though, right? Like at the high school you had gone to.
Yes. Yeah. No, I started coaching early, even when I was I was smart enough to realize at 5'9" that I needed to be able to coach as well. So even during when I was playing, even playing junior college basketball, I was always coaching in the summer at camps and lower level like middle school and high school kids. So I've been coaching a really long time because I was coaching while I was playing. But yeah, I officially started like at 20.
Man, so you're what, 41 now?
43.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So you've been coaching more than half your life at this point.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so how did it happen that, I know you were coaching at the high school level, coaching at the JUCO level, and then you end up with the Denver Nuggets when Masai is in that front office. How did that kind of start? How did you get your foot in the door on the NBA side?
Yeah, so it was my dream as a kid in Tucson. It was my dream to work at the University of Arizona under Lute Olson, and I was able to make that happen, which was an incredible experience. But the guy that opened up the position for me had gone on to the Denver Nuggets to work for George Karl, which allowed me the opportunity to work at the University of Arizona. Then he was getting promoted, and that opened up a spot in Denver as a video coordinator, and I immediately jumped on that and was able to get my foot in the door with the Nuggets.
So you did a couple years with the Nuggets. I think you did a quick stop in Houston. Can you walk me through how you came about joining the Raptors organization? I know Masai had moved over that May, and then you became one of Dwayne Casey's new assistants that summer, I think, right?
Yeah, so obviously getting to work with Masai in Denver, he was familiar with my work. And when I went to Houston, it was a pretty big jump for me because I was I was basically in charge of the player development in Houston. And, timing wise, it was amazing because they made the trade for James Harden. So he comes in and I'm in charge of player development, and we ended up having a great year. And when Masai takes Toronto, he basically was like, "Hey, Dwayne, this guy's up and coming, really good with getting the players better. I think would be a great fit for DeMar and Kyle, and helping those guys kind of, get to an all-star level." And so I met with Dwayne. It was amazing. I had some great recommendations of people that he had worked with, and then it all fell into place.
So you're with the Raptors for a couple seasons, and then 2015 rolls around, and they're adding a G League team. And at this point, I think Raptors 905 were the 17th team, if I'm remembering right. Now they're obviously 31. Everyone except Phoenix has one. There's the Ignite. There's the Mexico City Capitanes. But back as recently as 2015, this was not as well established of a thing. What were the conversations like when you first had the idea that maybe you were going to be the first coach of the 905? And kind of, did you pitch it to them? Did they pitch it to you? How did that all work?
Yeah, no, it's funny because I remember Eric Koreen at the time, like asking me why I would do that. And I felt like it was such an honor to be the first head coach in a franchise's history and start at the bottom. Where, you have an expansion draft. Obviously, I'm passionate about player development. And it was just a special time for the franchise. We had this really amazing run where, they were getting ready to blow it up. And, I was working with DeMar and Kyle, and they became all-stars, and we had this great run. And so there was a lot of momentum, and I just really believed in what we were doing in Toronto. And, to be able to be the first head coach and general manager, assistant GM with Dan Tolzman, who's also from my hometown, it was just everything lined up, and it was an exciting opportunity that I thought was a privilege and an honor to do.
Other than having to deal with me all the time, right?
That was bonus points.
Yeah.
That was like the icing on the cake.
That was the season I was there like almost every game. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So obviously that year you guys are still figuring some stuff out on the fly, right? And I know there were some successes, Axel Toupon and Greg Smith get the NBA promotion from you guys. I think Ronald Roberts was set to get one, but then he had the knee issues come up. So because I do want to refresh people on the Bruno stuff. Norm was down there, Dolan, Bebe, but on the, how you'd evaluate that season overall, how big was it to be able to get a couple guys to the NBA in Axel's case, or back to the NBA in the case of Greg Smith?
It was such an amazing experience. And it was a huge success because, Masai and Bobby and Dan had given me a directive of, this is about building a culture, establishing something, and it's not about wins and losses. And we're going to, play Bruno. We're going to get him better. We're going to get Dolan and Norman better and get them experience. And I really took that to heart. And I really put those guys' development and what was best for the Raptors in the forefront. And it was an amazing opportunity because we start out rocky, as we should, as an expansion team. But we had an amazing run in the second half of the season. And it was I think we ended up at that time setting an expansion team record in wins. And the biggest part of that was Norman got so much better and was able to be an impact player in the playoffs, which was that was, I was just really proud of that because we had put so much into that. And for him to have an impact in the playoffs kind of made it all worth it.
Yeah. And for people who are unclear of exactly how this timeline lines up, you mean he had an impact in the NBA playoffs, not the G League playoffs. Comes down with you guys for 8 games, and then that Indiana series, he swings it with the big steal and the dunk in Game 5, and goes from playing with you guys for a half dozen or 10 games to making a real impact on the Raptors playoff run. So when that 905 season ended, did you? I can't remember. You would have rejoined the Raptors for the playoffs and been around?
Yes. Yeah. No, I was there. I was watching like a proud papa. I was hoping, Norman, Dolan, and those guys were going to get some run.
So obviously that, like you said off the top there, that year was a lot about Bruno because the year prior he'd been a rookie. He played a couple of games, but the Raptors didn't have an affiliate, obviously. And so this was kind of his rookie season. You and I have talked about that a lot for stories that I've written, but now a little removed, now that he's like a really good international player. What do you remember about that kind of first full season with Bruno with the 905?
Yeah, I just remember, it gave me a lot of perspective on expectations and just especially international guys that are coming to the NBA and the pressures of it, and really being able to be removed and be in the G League with him on a daily basis and kind of see where he was at maturity wise, and just this cultural shock and having all these pressures on him because the Raptors, we were in such a great place as an organization, and his length and his talent obviously was enticing for everybody in the city. And so being able to live that process and live it with this young person who is English as a second language, and they're not great at it, and it was just a really great learning experience for Bruno. To get the patience and the support and be able to play through mistakes. And it was a great learning experience for me just to be able to kind of zoom out and see like how hard it is for these guys and how to coach to try to get the best out of them and not beat them down.
So I'm sure that's been really valuable for you as you've moved on, because after that successful season, you leave us, you go join the Lakers. Lakers have a big free agency every summer. This summer it's Jesse Mermuys, and then you did a little time with the Kings, and now you've been with Orlando a couple seasons. Looking back, I know 905 is primarily the experience you have as a head coach. How has that helped you as you've moved on to other organizations back in an elite assistant role?
Yeah, it has really helped me become a better assistant coach, and just having those head coaching reps is just incredible for your lens when you're viewing these games in real time, and you know what the head coach is having to decide the decisions and what he's going through, and to be able to know when to. I remember for Case, like, I was as a young whippersnapper assistant, first time on the front of the bench. I remember I was, offering tons of suggestions all the time. And I had so much passion. And when you become a head coach, you realize sometimes less is more, and how to balance it out. And so having that experience has been incredible, not only for just helping the players and having that perspective of what they're going through, but also helping my boss, it kind of filter some of the stuff that is coming at them, because it's such a difficult position.
And it does seem like that's working so far in Orlando with you and Jamal Mosley. So you had the couple of seasons with the Lakers, with the Kings under Luke Walton. This is season 3 with the Magic. How has it been, kind of moving up the bench, I guess, is the best way to phrase it, where you're kind of Jamal's like lead assistant now, right?
Yes.
How has that been for you, kind of like, and for listeners who maybe don't know, how does that role change if you're second row, or you're the third chair on the first row, or now you're the lead assistant? What is that growth, and how does that job change?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm in charge of the offense here, but also as the lead assistant, like, I'm wearing 2 hats. And, over the years of experience that I've had, this NBA thing is like, you're always learning and growing, and there's always more to learn. And it's such an amazing league because of the talent of the players. And so you as a coach have to be constantly looking for ways to improve and giving your team a competitive advantage. And part of that is filling in the gaps of the head coach and what he needs to support him. And, at times when he might be agitated with officials and we're not getting a good call, that might be providing some calm and, and some wisdom and really a steady voice. And then at times where the team is, needs a little kick in the butt, you're a second line of defense to be able to bark at those guys to get them going. So it doesn't always have to be his voice, being the hammer. And so, teams throughout an 82-game season, they need a lot of different avenues to keep it together, to keep them motivated, to keep them, playing the right way. And so I just love that process. And every day it's a daily learning process. Every day it's a chance to make an impact, and every game is different. You guys were up 40 the other night. We were up 40 last night. It's like coaching in that game is a totally different deal than trying to claw your way back. And it's like, how you maintain the lead? How do you close it out? When do you sub your starters? There's so many things that are going on all the time.
Man, and I'd imagine with this Magic team, obviously you guys are 8-5 this year. It's no longer what we'd call, a rebuilding team necessarily, but you having the player development background, you having the 905 background, you guys have had 5 lottery picks in the last 3 years. And I think 4 of them are like regularly in the rotation for you guys. How much has that player development background helped as you work in Franz and Suggs and Paolo and now Anthony Black, who's playing a bunch for you guys. I know Jet hasn't played a ton, but like Anthony Black's starting for you guys now as a rookie lottery pick. I'd imagine you're leaning on that background pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's I've been so fortunate to work with the players that I've luckily been involved with over my run. And obviously, I was fortunate in Denver and Houston with those guys, but it really started with DeMar and Kyle in that process. Like, and those are some of my closest friends now and peers. They've been in so long. We've all been doing it together now, and so being able to be a part of these guys' careers. And, because of the LA experience, I've got to work with Randall. I got to work with Brandon Ingram. I've got, and then you go to SAC, I had Tyrese and De'Aaron Fox and like all these budding stars. I've gotten to be able to be a part of their process. And so it's like now when you come and you have all these draft picks, you're leaning on your experiences with all these other players who have gone on to have success. And that helps you have more tools in your belt to help Paulo, Franz, and Jalen and these guys, So it's like you're just stacking. You're stacking experience, and as long as your heart is in the right place and you're giving it great effort and passion, like you're gonna only be able to help these guys achieve their dreams and successes and do it within the structure of the team and what's best for the team. And so I'm constantly relaying stories from my time in Toronto with DeMar and Kyle to Paulo all the time, and DeMar is such an incredible ambassador to the game and a loyal ambassador. He's a friend of mine. And so I was able to get him and Paulo together, and get them to spend some time and so he could drop some wisdom on him, of what this thing is like. And, he's obviously had his trials and tribulations, and that helps these young guys like know that, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and they're, as long as they're working extremely hard and they're staying positive, the sky's the limit.
So you guys are 8-5 this year. It doesn't feel like another year where you'll have lottery picks. What is clicked for you guys? I know the defense ranks #1 right now. That ranking says a lot, but big picture, what has kind of clicked or coalesced for you guys that after a couple down years, this feels like a year where you guys are potentially back in the mix here?
Well, I think, obviously Jeff worked with Masai in Toronto, and I was there with both of them, and they have very similar ideas as far as like they're very progressive, they're very cutting edge as far as getting size and versatility, and you can see that in both rosters. And so we have a similar style. And I think, Jeff and John and AP have done such a great job of getting us that size. When you roll out the Paulos and Franz who are able to play like point guards, we've played both of those players at the point, similar to a Scotty. And so it's like when you're able to do that in today's NBA, you have such an advantage, and the game is constantly changing and evolving. And having size and versatility is just a premium. And, both of our franchises have done a great job of getting, that size out there on the floor, and which gives us the ability to really do a lot of different things from an offensive standpoint and a defensive standpoint. And so you're seeing that play out with both of us. And so it's just, it's an exciting time to be a part of the NBA because it's just, the game is evolving so fast that you have to keep up. You have to stay ahead of it. You have to try to find competitive advantage. And right now, having Paulo and Franz, on that wing like that is just, it's really working for us because teams have to make decisions, and it creates a problem. And we need to develop the players as far as shooting goes, and that's part of the process. They're going to become better shooters because they're hard workers and because Coach Moses set a culture of work. And so as long as we can continue to do what we're doing, we should be fine.
Yeah, Tuesday night, probably not the best 3-point percentage in league history when you guys and the Raptors go head to head. Both teams shoot about 33% on threes. But before I let you go here, it is Raptors-Magic Tuesday night. I know you don't want to give away too much, but if you are kind of in charge of the offense, I imagine you've taken a pretty good look at the Raptors defense. What do you make of this team so far in their first year under Darko Rajakovic? Scotty Barnes obviously taking a step forward. What are your impressions from afar?
Yeah, I like what they're doing. They obviously they got their mojo back as far as like chemistry wise. Their assist numbers are incredible, which I think is when your assist numbers are incredible, it means that your chemistry is great and guys are really bought in, and you're going to get some consistent effort on the defensive end. And so, you can tell that the vibes are good, and they're flying around, they're sharing the basketball. They have the size, at those positions. I mean, you're rolling out Scotty Barnes as your 2 guard. It's just like, it's difficult to match up. And we're actually probably the one team that does match up with them with the size that we have. And so, it should be a fun test. They're very similar styles, very, similar rosters. So it should be a good battle.
And this is the first home game for you guys in the in-season tournament. So how do you feel about the court that you guys have? Have you got to see it in person yet even?
I have not seen it. No,
Okay.
I have not seen it. We're excited. Our guys, they're young and they love that type of stuff. So I expect them to be excited to be able to put on a show.
All right. Well, I hope the season continues going well for you guys, except for Tuesday. Jesse, thanks so much for taking the time out, man. This was a lot of fun to catch up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Blake. I really appreciate it.
Jesse Mermuys, assistant coach of the Orlando Magic, the first head coach in Raptors 905 history. And we'll get a look at that new Magic court tonight. It's kind of like a gray on either side with dark blue and gold down the middle. We'll see how that looks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, great interview. I thought Jesse brought a lot of energy. It was like one of those guys that just like is smiling no matter what he's saying. It could be something more critical, it could be something more optimistic, but just bringing a positive energy. I had 2 takeaways listening to the interview that I wanted to ask you before we go to the next break. Just number one, like hearing his story about how he got into the league. What's your general advice for if somebody wants to work for the NBA?
Man, I don't know. I've never worked in the NBA, so I don't know.
But you know a lot of NBA people.
Yeah, I mean, look,
what are the traits of success?
The biggest thing is you're going to have to put passion over, income and security and things like that. Like he was coaching, he was an assistant coach at high schools, in junior colleges and stuff like that. Got his foot in the door in the NBA. Yes, through connections he made at Arizona. So you need to be able to work connections as well.
Of course.
But also the video coordinator role is not a glamorous one, not a super high paid one. You're going to have to work your way up like that. And now some people get in just via the connections. But yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of ways in, but they all require putting passion, kind of first.
Yeah, it is a lot easier when you're somebody's son, 90% of the time. And then my other takeaway is just you asked him for his favorite Bruno story, coaching Bruno. What's your favorite Bruno story, covering Bruno?
So the year that they won the championship, he was pouting on the sideline after Pascal looked him off for a kick out. And Pascal said something to him that I can't repeat on the air. And Bruno didn't come back in that game. But the next game was the game of Bruno's life.
Yes,
and
I
is
remember.
Still the best game he's ever played at any level other than the game against Giannis.
Yeah, I think he had
in the World Cup.
7 threes or something like that.
Yeah, and he was everywhere. So
it was in the finals. Yeah,
Pascal just, some guys need the carrot, some guys need the stick, and Pascal lit a fire under him.
I didn't know Pascal had that in him.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Pascal and Fred were down there to win a championship and then get back to business with a playoff Raptor team.
Yeah. Man, honestly, those are really, really good times for the 905. Hopefully we can get back there as a franchise. But anyway, we're going to take a break. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. When we come back, Blake makes a reunion with a former podcast host. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, William Lou. I've had my coffee. I'm here. And I'm joined by Blake Murphy, co-host, who had a great interview with Jesse Mermuys of the Orlando Magic. And now we are joined on the line by Koreen of The Athletic. Eric, man, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Well, we're so pumped for this in-season tournament game against Orlando tonight at 7. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm actually
You
really
sound
looking forward to it.
sarcastic, but you are pumped
No,
up.
I'm really looking forward to this, man. Orlando has a lot of like rotation pieces that have some young promise. Goga Batadze is now in the mix.
Yeah.
You guys excited to see Goga Batadze?
I am. Legitimately.
I know. You're a huge Magic fan. Yeah, Eric, I don't know if you heard this story yet, but on opening night when the Raptors played the Timberwolves, we sit in the 600 level of the booth. There's like a radio booth. There's like 5 seats in there. And so me and Alex are coming upstairs. We're ready to, watch the game and all that kind of stuff. And we notice the door to the booth is locked. And eventually we like look around one of the other booths and we look inside and Blake's just in there by himself watching something on his laptop. We're like, Blake, open the door for us. Blake comes over, opens the door for us. I get in and he's watching, it was, I think, Houston versus Orlando in the room in the dark. So as somebody who has worked with Blake a long time, have you had similar experiences with Blake Murphy locking the door, turning out the lights to watch obscure teams?
I don't know why you're making fun of that. That's like 2 playoff teams playing each other.
You're right.
Like, what's wrong with that?
No, I think the context was at that time, with the door locked, it was a little strange.
Blake is, I mean, Blake just knows what's coming. He can see the future, and he knew this was going to be a battle of one of, or 2 of the most dynamic young cores in the NBA. Yeah. I think you got to start to give him some credit.
Yeah,
that's been vindicated.
Look at those assists per game leaderboards and assist to turnover leaderboards. Yeah, Fred VanVleet looking all right in Houston. And the Orlando Magic, Eric, as you pointed out on Twitter earlier, the only team in the league that is better than the Raptors at defense and worse than them at offense. They looked at them and they said, hey, anything you can do, we can do better and worse at the same time. Let's start with that then. We were going to do some Knicks stuff, but we're on the Magic top. But let's start there. The Magic are the only team in the league that's kind of out-Raptorsing the Raptors. They have length everywhere. Like 8 of their 12 rotation players, when healthy, are 6'8" or bigger. Like they're massive, and they're better than Raptors on defense, and they're worse at them on offense. Eric, what is your read on that? And I guess, I'm sure you find it interesting as well that Jeff Weltman left the Raptors organization for the Orlando Magic and have basically at this point, through different ways, but built a parallel experiment to the Raptors.
Yeah, it's interesting because like the same with the Raptors. I don't know how much of it was like an architectural choice and how much of it just happened by a sort of let's collect the best assets we can find and we'll build a philosophy around that. Saying that, they have 2 guys, Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, who certainly fit that Raptors mold. That sort of long playmaking forward role. And what ends up happening with the Magic is probably how they end up figuring out what happens in the backcourt. And, I think the Raptors situation is more complicated because of, free agency and Pascal Siakam's age compared to Scotty Barnes. But it's a similar thing of like, well, what is the backcourt going to look like when Scotty Barnes is 24, 25, or 26 and not 21? And the same goes for the Magic. So I think, I don't know how much of it is just Weltman and Masai Ujiri coming up and believing in the same basketball principles, although I'm sure there's some of it. It is very interesting. And I can't think of 2 teams that are probably less equipped to make a trade with one another than these 2.
Yeah, seriously.
Masai would want Chume Okiki, though. Now that he's out of the rotation, he'd want Chume.
I mean, listen, if you're out of the rotation, it's especially for this team that's already playing like 10 guys with some injuries as well, then there's some real issues there. But he is talented. There is definitely a case for his minutes. Eric, I wanted to ask you, so if you wanted to, like, for this style of team build where you have 2 playmaking wings on both the Raptors and both Orlando, and then you have some more traditional centers at, protecting the rim, playing some pick and roll with, what's the archetype of guard that should go with that can really help amplify or even carry the offense at times? Because I think typically offense is the issue for these style of teams, not defense.
Yeah, I mean, like shooting is obviously such an amplifying factor and a complementary factor to these types of players. And, you can see how much trouble the Raptors are having without a whole lot of it in the half court. And you look at Orlando's numbers, and it's not difficult to come to the same conclusion. So shooting is a big part, but so does, somebody who doesn't necessarily need the ball as much, but when he catches it can get up and go. And so, like, if Dennis Schroeder was a higher volume shooter and could hit, 38% of his threes, well, first of all, that he'd probably be close to an all-star. But second of all, that would be a very sort of similar player. I think, like, the best version of Jalen Suggs is that, but we haven't seen nearly the shooting. But that's somebody who doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands as much and can still be an effective winning player. So yeah, you want somebody who can put pressure defensively and offensively, can, poses enough of a threat either with shooting or speed, and preferably both, to be able to take advantage of those kick-out passes that come and keep the defense scrambling.
So to boil their philosophy down to, I'm going to be reductionist here, but basically the idea seems to be that if you can develop a 6'9" forward with playmaking skill and who can be an offensive hub, the value of that type of player is so outsized relative to everything else in the league that it makes filling the other things in easier. Like, it's more difficult to find one of those guys than it is to find a guard who complements them if they hit. And hey, if we have to take some bumps and the offense doesn't look great while we figure that out, San Antonio is doing some similar things where they're not putting Wemby in the best positions right now, but that's in part because they're trying to figure out, hey, can Jeremy Sohan do this? Can Devin Vassell do that? Can Keldon Johnson do this? It's not about optimizing right now. Big picture though, Eric, do you believe in the general idea that, let's say this works out, 85th, 90th percentile outcome, that the value of a playmaking offensive hub with that size is significant enough relative to other types of players to justify kind of this multi-year search and build to create one?
I mean, assuming it works, sure. Like that's the wild card in everything, and every path is, as we like to remind people, unlikely to produce a championship. So if that's all you're going by, then no. But like, I think part of it, and the unsaid thing here, is that it's so valuable because it's defensively valuable. Like, a lot of those players at that size can give you so much more versatility that you're able to do more, and you're able to play a more switch heavy scheme if that's what you want to do. You're able to, cheat a little more and recover if that's what you want to do. And it just allows you so much more on the other end, which of course is important throughout the year, but becomes often incredibly important in playoff series when you need that sort of diverse set of play options and playing styles to get through for series, like, playing big and then playing small and everything in between. That is so important, and having a number of those players is sort of a prerequisite to being able to do that, because they're not going to be played off the floor on defensively. So I think that's a big part of it. I think, like, all things being equal, those are the most valuable types of players in the league. But like anything else, it comes with real challenges in terms of fit, in terms of player development, and all of that.
Yeah, it is funny watching these two teams because they really do have similar needs. Like, they do need hopefully a rim protecting, but maybe floor spacing 5. I think maybe Orlando's a little bit closer to that. Although not, I think Wendell Carter's out of the lineup tonight. But
yeah,
regardless,
he's been out for a while.
Yeah,
but Goga has
healthy,
fit in, like, he doesn't check the spacing box. He hasn't hit a 3 all year. But yeah, that is something, because like Toronto with, what are the limitations of a Barnes Siakam front court? Well, it's not so much what they can do, but you add Jakob Poeltl to that and the spacing. Eric, you had a great piece on this at The Athletic late last week about Jakob Poeltl's maybe good player, bad fit because of how he exacerbates those spacing issues. Same kind of thing with Orlando. Now, Paolo Banchero is ahead of Franz and Scotty, and Pascal's a 3-point shooter right now, so maybe that helps alleviate it. But generally, yeah, you're probably going to need, there aren't very many of these guys, but like a Miles Turner-ish guy as the center who can, pick and pop and protect the rim a little bit.
Yeah, and the guard aspect's interesting too because I don't think the answer long term for both franchises at point guard for either Orlando or Toronto is actually currently on Orlando or Toronto.
No, and Orlando's prioritized defense at those positions rather than thinking, hey, we need an organizer, we need a shooter. Yeah,
they just hate scoring.
Like Anthony Black is starting now, and it's like he's not there offensively yet. Like he can bounce and he can finish around the rim and stuff like that, but mostly he's there because he's 6'7" at the point of attack. He's very, very long. So they're kind of, I guess, like Eric said, some of this is just who's available to you in the draft, who's available to you in free agency, but they've kind of been like, don't reach for fit yet. We're not there yet.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Blake, you wanted to go through your concern index.
Oh, yeah. So
yes,
Eric and I used to co-host Raptors Reasonableness podcast together, and one of our favorite bits.
Apparently now it's Raptors Reductionists.
Yeah.
Based on your comment earlier.
I do be reducing. So the concern index, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically, here's something I've noticed. It obviously skews toward the negative, given it's called concern index, and given Eric Koreen is the guest, we're going to skew pessimistic. But basically, I'll give you guys an issue. You guys give me a 1 to 5 on how concerned you are about it. 5 is basically it needs serious addressing immediately. 1 is you don't care. And you can go to a 0 if you think it absolutely should not. Like, I shouldn't even have brought it up. Like, what are you talking about, Blake? We settled?
Let's do this.
All right, Eric Koreen.
Is the first question my cat walking across the screen? Because that's currently at a 4.5.
No, that'd be welcome.
That would be welcome,
okay.
Eric. If you showed us your cat instead of yourself.
I think I've dissuaded her for now, but she is pesky like the former Raptors' super aggressive defense. Turnovers at any cost.
That's a Nick Nurse-led coached cat. All right.
Yeah, the entire goal is havoc. The outcome doesn't matter, just havoc. Okay, before your cat interrupts, let's start with a goofy one. I was going to start you with a goofy WWE one, but let's go with a goofy NBA one. The New York Knicks continue to press this lawsuit. They have requested the courts take it out of the hands of the NBA, which means, hey, you can't get punished a draft pick by like a federal judge, but you can get punished for more money. Eric, as this continues to drag on, as we get more updates, your concern level with the Knicks lawsuit against the Toronto Raptors.
So I guess the question, obviously I can't answer a question just straightforwardly, is like, who am I concerned for? From the Raptors perspective, I think it's like a 3. I think the news that broke today via ESPN that James Dolan basically is no longer taking part at NBA meetings and isn't in the board of governors anymore, is now sending his counsel. That shows you what a wild card this guy is. And that's something we sort of know. If you've watched any JD and the Straight Shot videos, you know. But like before the season, I was sort of convinced that the NBA would make this go away somehow in some way. But if James Dolan really doesn't care even more than usual about the NBA, then there's a possibility this ends up in court, which I would have been shocked at the beginning of the season. Saying that, it's like, it's money. So from like a competitive standpoint, I'm not really concerned, but from this is going to be annoying and takes more resources than we'd like. There is a bit of a concern. So yeah, 3.25.
All right.
Wow.
Well, very
So
specific. Yeah. To 2 significant digits. Will, I will reframe this for you and ask your concern level, not with the outcome of the lawsuit, but as we hear details about it or heard details about it, just your overall concern level with what this says about how the Raptors are operating. Now, this could be as a 1 if you think the Knicks are like completely making up, to a 5, like, hey, this is a really sloppy shop kind of thing. Where do you land on just kind of the details and what it says about the Raptors?
Yeah, I mean, from everything that's been published in the suit and just judging off that alone, I would say probably like a 4.
Okay.
Like, you could have done this.
It's pretty high.
I mean, this was an avoidable scenario. That's the thing, too. If the Raptors do ultimately get punished for this, it's something that they'll kick themselves because you could have made this hiring and it could have been done in a way where you avoided all of this. Now, of course, it's easier to say that in hindsight, especially if that is the industry standard, is coaches move from place to place. Jesse Mermuys wants to go from the Lakers to the Orlando Magic. No problem. He wants to take some synergy files with him. No problem. That's some video files. Like, it's okay, you know? But in any sense, I think that moving forward, this will probably, hopefully it does change how they sort of move on this front, only because it is avoidable. Even if it is something that, like, the whole league is sloppy, overall, I guess the whole league can avoid this, you know?
They need to get back to lasagna, moving in silence.
Yeah, sure. Let her go.
Okay,
Great
let's take it to on the court. You know, scenario plays out. Raptors get fined, $10 million. They can't spend it in the luxury tax because of that. And, hey, they can't go out and sign an extra shooter because, Eric, the Raptors are shooting 33.6% on three-pointers this year. You look at individually, Grady Dick is probably the only guy who's having like an outlier bad performance outside of what we'd maybe expect from them individually. That mark is fourth to last in the entire NBA. It is the year 2023, almost 2024, and the Toronto Raptors cannot hit threes at a modern level. What is your concern level with that part of this team?
For the sake of this year's team, like pretty much a 4.5. I would say it was easy to identify that as being one of the biggest issues holding the team back. I know the fan base was, to say the least, split on Fred VanVleet. And, I'm not necessarily somebody who's going to be shouting about them not bringing him back, given what the contractual situation ended up being. But having somebody out there who is respected in the very least as a guy who can hit a big shot like that, that was important for Pascal Siakam. It would be extremely important for Scotty Barnes' growth as a playmaker now. Like there's still been some encouraging stuff without that, but I think it's certainly on a team that isn't overwhelming with sort of like half-court dynamism or speed or just like quick decision making, and they're trying to coach that up. It's really hard to implement a system that involves lots of passing and lots of movement when the whole middle of the floor is pretty much blocked off.
If nobody's reacting to your movement because they're not worried about you shooting.
Well, the Pistons were. The Pistons were treating the Raptors. Anyway.
And then their star player said, basically, we're not a serious team.
And then they lost to a Jokic and Murray-less Nuggets team last night.
It was close, though.
So anyway, like, long term, I mean, it's obviously something they need to address, but if you're hoping this team is better than sort of the play-in team that we kind of was general consensus, I'd say, if like even a bit optimistic, that is going to be one of, if not the biggest thing that holds them back from doing it.
Will, this is almost the exact same three-point percentage they had last year when they became the first team in the modern three-point era to finish 500 while shooting that poorly on threes. So they've shown they can make it work just barely, but your concern level with the lack of three-point shooting on this year's version of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I agree with Eric on that front. Like, it is a really big concern, so I would say 4, but I guess I'm a little bit I'm feeling optimistic with some of the three-point improvement by some of the players. Like, I think Dennis is treating the threes better than I expected when the Raptors signed him. He had some cold stretches, but overall, I think he's actually shot catch and shoot threes well enough. And then Scotty has made a big three-point jump, which I think I'm finding really encouraging. So I think that's actually masking things like Gary getting off to a slow start, Grady really starting to struggle from three as a rookie. Pascal obviously falling off a cliff from the three-point perspective. So, I do feel happy at least that 2 of the starting 5 is performing better than I expected from 3.
Yeah, so Schroeder comes in right now at 34.8%. Like you said, the catch and shoot numbers a little better than that. Gary Trent has actually nudged up to 37% now,
yeah?
So quietly he's kind of back within his career range. Eric, like I mentioned, the only player really underperforming what we might expect is Grady Dick, who came in with a great shooting reputation, great projections. If you look at the type of threes he was taking in college, he's shooting 23.7% so far. This is, I'm going to answer this and say long-term, my concern level here is like 1.5. Like, I don't think it's an issue. I think he's catching up to the speed of the game and the length of closeouts and things like that. But Eric, you're concerned that for this year that Grady doesn't seem to be super comfortable just yet. He's taking 6.8 per 36, which is third on the team. I would have expected that to be higher probably. Eric, your concern index with Grady Dick for just this year's window.
I like that Will's previous answer was pretty much, look, I didn't expect these things to be good. And if they keep on being good and then the bad stuff becomes good.
They can be almost average shooting the three.
Yeah.
You don't think that's what Darko's telling them? Come on. You gotta be optimistic.
Everybody just become their best selves, and this team's going to be awesome.
Okay.
Grady Dick, I would put it sort of at a 2. And what has me more concerned than the shooting, I think, is that over the last 4 or 5 games, I haven't seen as many of those sort of just energy off the ball plays, whether it's keeping an offensive rebound alive or like sort of a nice, what he is right off the line, him making a good, quick decision. And really getting into the paint and creating the next play, which is obviously huge for how Darko Rajakovic wants this team to play, both in the short, but especially the long term. And assuming he finds his stroke, at some point will be huge for him as a player. And so his overall play, I think, has, even though the shooting hasn't really been there, but I think his overall play has dipped a bit lately, and really lately, last week and a half maybe. So that's why I'd have it a bit higher. You'd like to see those things that he was doing beforehand to stay stable while the shot comes, while we wait for the shot. But it's not a large level of concern. It's more than likely a player getting used to a more demanding schedule, and certainly getting used to just tougher, more physical basketball.
Yeah. For me, I'm gonna probably say a 3. I feel like I'm not misremembering this, right? But didn't Bobby say at the time of the draft that they had some hope that Grady would be an immediate contributor?
Yeah, I believe so. And look,
it's not like we drafted Bruno and we got to wait 2 years.
He was in the rotation by the second game of the season.
Yeah. Which makes sense. Like, the Raptors definitely need shooting, and you bring Grady in, and he had a great shooting record. I'm not concerned long term, because I don't think there's enough of a sample to be making any judgments on any rookies long term just based on 1 month of their career. But my concern is at 3, mostly because of the idea that if he can't be an elite 3-point shooter, then I don't really know what else he's going to bring to the game. And so this is the most important thing. It'd be like if I can't come in here and do radio for some reason, then what is my value to Sportsnet? It really would make me worry a lot. Now, of course, there's the natural adjustment period. There's finding your feet. I honestly think even for a 19, I guess you just turned 20, even for a 20-year-old, how much are you settling into something? This is your first job. This is the first time you're away from home for that long. He literally grew up in Kansas, went to Kansas, so, all right, where did you grow up? Wichita? Is that Kansas?
Something like
That's
that.
Kansas. Yeah, sorry, I don't really know American geography like that. But still, this is such a new experience for him that I obviously I'm more than willing to give lots of grace to it. But long term, it is something I'm concerned about, because it's one of those things where it's you watch him warm up and stuff. He's not consistent in warm ups either.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he gets in the game and he can't find the space to release. He's just not making them.
Yeah. So we'll have to give it a little bit of time, of course, but certainly worth monitoring, because like you said, like Eric said, all those little things he was doing early in the season, that stuff's nice, but long term, that doesn't get you on the floor if you don't have the shooting skill to demand minutes, right?
Everything's built off this one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
We've seen Svi Mihailuk here. We've seen Matt Thomas here. We've seen Malcolm Miller here. But I know.
Yeah.
But you got to hit your shots if you're a shooter first.
For sure.
Okay. Eric Koreen, this Saturday on Sportsnet Plus, you can watch WWE Survivor Series. Your concern level that Intercontinental Champion Gunther is not taking The Miz seriously enough in their Intercontinental title match.
So I'm concerned for Gunther here.
Yes.
Look, I think there's going to be some near falls. The Miz is a wily veteran, but I'll say a 1.5. I think this isn't how Gunther's reign is ending. I like his moxie.
Yeah, he is dominant. He's also, a kind of he's a Raptors-y wrestler. He is huge and doesn't do flippy stuff. There's I don't know how to transition back out of this one, Eric. So we're just going to transition awkwardly to the next Raptors point, which is that when OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Scotty Barnes are all on the floor, this team has been awesome. even with the spacing concerns and things like that, that trio has a net rating of plus 16 when they're out there together. That's monstrous. It's one of the best among any three-man units in the league. Your concern level, Will, I'll start with you, that any combination that is not the three of them together has really struggled. The net rating when two of them and the other one's out is sinks to +1. So still positive, but barely. When only one of them's on the floor, it drops to -13. And when none of them on the floor, it's -8. And that includes a good chunk of garbage time. Your concern level that this trio, and we've talked so much about Scotty and Pascal and you know, the potential awkwardness of that fit offensively. When that trio's not out there together, the Raptors have really struggled.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, if I'm not mistaken, like the only time that those three guys really play together is with the starting lineup.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like they'll close together, you know, when Scotty Barnes is not stuck at the scorer's table.
Yes. Oh, damn. Yeah, like sometimes you might see Yak off the floor. You might put Gary in for spacing, things like that. But or Precious maybe if he's closing strong, which he has been recently. But no, I mean, I think that's a positive thing. That's something that Darko can manage. I mean, part of the issue is, well, not part of the issue, but part of when you want to play 10-man rotation is you are like limiting some of the opportunities for your best players to play together. You're mostly splitting them up so that you can cover some of those minutes and at least hopefully get by. But the fact that they play well together is a really big sign for me. So, I mean, I want to keep that as a 2, I guess. I guess the roster construction around them. But I am confident that Darko can find different pieces. I think Jakob and Dennis definitely fits with those two. I'm confident that Gary can swap in for Jakob or Dennis in that starting group in those transition lineups. I'm not saying that you should start him over Jakob. And then I'm also pretty happy with what Precious has been doing the last week or so to see that if he can get a chance to sort of play with more and more of that group, that threesome is really solid. The thing is, of course, you got to divide those minutes, and then you get to a point where it's like, all right, I don't know. But.
So, Eric, let me kind of twist this one a little bit. So I think Will's answer there was a good one. It's obviously a positive that those three guys play so well together. I guess you're concerned then that the other two starters have not been able to boost up those bench units. So even if it's just one of OG, Pascal, or Scotty, so those Scotty and bench or Pascal and bench, we haven't really seen OG and bench other than that one game where him and Jakob played out there together. But even if those individuals get one of Dennis or Jakob, that hasn't helped. They're still getting rolled a little bit. Basically, Schroeder and Pirtle, while they've been really solid with the starters, have not been able to, even as steady vets, help those bench or transitional units.
And this is how I took that question first. Like, this question isn't actually about those three players.
Right, it's about everyone else.
It's about everyone else. It's about their long-term depth. And so, like, it's actually as close to a 5 as I could get without being, 5 is sort of on this mythical end of the scale that doesn't really exist. But yeah, it's a big problem. It's a big problem because all three of those guys, we know the contractual situation with them. We don't have to make everything a conversation about what's to come, but considering this team probably isn't going to win the title this year, it becomes bigger than it does for a contending team, certainly. But the hard thing about navigating all of this is you still don't really know what you have around these guys. And like you alluded to my story about Jakob Poeltl, like the fit hasn't been as good this year as it seemed last year. And while I think Poeltl can play at a higher level, his rim protection numbers are actually up. He's been a more effective rim protector this year. Almost all of the issues have been offensive, or on the offensive end, I should say. And Schroeder, like, he's just, you could sort of see that coming, like his strength and his lack of, real floor spacing was always going to be a hindrance next to these guys, or something that holds them back a little bit. So, and that's to say nothing of the depth. And, it would be great if Precious, such a wild card on this roster,
Yep.
if he pops, and he, like, I think we would probably agree that he is like the youngish player most likely to really pop this season. It opens up so many potential avenues for the team moving forward. And the injuries, I don't know how this became a question about Precious Achiuwa, but here we are. But the injuries and just some of the inconsistent play beyond that, it just really makes it difficult to map out a rotation, because Precious he's played almost exclusively as a center, and they do very different things when he's on the floor versus when Pirtle's on the floor. And yet you can move him off away from center and have him kind of replace a bit of what all of those guys do defensively more so than offensively, but he has a bit of offensive bounce to his game, especially on when he decides to drive quickly. So I'm really concerned, not so much again for this year's team, because I've sort of come to terms and my expectations are middling, and what's happening is sort of more or less what I thought would play out. But as you try and paint a picture of where this is going, that's when that statistic becomes really, really troubling.
Yeah. I do wonder, out of all the rest of the guys, putting aside those three main pieces, it feels like Dennis and Jakob have the closest thing as it comes to like providing structure as a two-man game. I don't think the rest of the team really provides like structure where you can play out of a play like that. So is there a way for Darko to essentially make those two the first two substitutes from the starting five, and then bring them back in to start second quarters and like run that pick and roll, at least as a centralizing, organizing action that could, hopefully, I guess, buy them some minutes while some of their main guys aren't playing together?
My guess would be that, first of all, Yak and Dennis have only played 3 minutes total as like Yak, Dennis, and bench guys.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to ask this question.
It's they've barely seen it. I think their issue would probably be twofold. One is like, does that take away too much of the fact that the starting lineup's been pretty good? But also, like, they have clearly, even though it hasn't worked yet in terms of actual results, prioritized Scotty getting reps in those Scotty bench units.
Okay. Right.
It has been like since early in the preseason, Scotty's the first starter to come off the floor, and then he comes back in pretty early, and then he even sometimes comes back out again in the second quarter to kind of make sure the minutes are managed and things like that. I think it's been a pretty clear priority for them to get Scotty those reps, initiating bench units, and I don't know that they'd be willing to trade that off for something that short term might work better.
That's fair. And that does speak to the Raptors satisfying two incentives rather than just one.
Yeah. Okay, Eric. Concern index with, and I'm going to phrase this one carefully because I think it's much too early. But Darko Rajakovic has been a positive leader, good messaging, good spirit, things like that. Couple times there have been some micro things that there was room to quibble on, including that game on Friday with the Pascal Siakam foul handling, the Scotty Barnes substitution in late, some rotation questions generally. Your concern level with the learning curve for Darko Rajakovic, and we're doing this as part of the bit, not because we're actually concerned. It's certainly much too early, big picture.
Yeah, like 1.7.
Okay.
I
two significant digits, Eric. We come on, we got to be consistent on that.
1.73.
There we go.
It's just like I wasn't even that bothered. Like, yes, like Scotty should have been back in the game, but the Pascal thing actually bothered me a bit more, and I actually might have like the thing I might have quibbled with is getting Pascal back in the game with 3 fouls and in the second quarter of a play-in. Sorry, I will call the in-season tournament the play-in tournament until
you and everyone else.
I think you could have made a big case for that, especially as you saw. It's weird because they got down 16, partly because Pascal was out of the game, but then they made a comeback because Pascal was able to play without foul trouble. So, I guess the result is like that the right thing happened, and the Raptors should have lost that game by 3 points. But that in the moment, that was sort of the thing I quibbled with more than the Scotty situation, because that group was sort of, Precious was playing pretty well, and I wouldn't necessarily be in the business of burning timeouts on this team.
They did need both of them.
When late game execution is going to be problematic, probably. So, I'm not going to kill him for that. I just haven't seen enough beyond that to really say, oh, this guy doesn't have the chops late in game. Maybe other people are compiling lists. I think he's been more or less fine.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a hard 1.00. I feels like everyone really loves Darko, and I think that was my biggest thing.
Yeah.
Like big picture wise, I think he's actually nailing it. like small. I mean, I know this is about the micro decisions, but I think overall he's been really good.
Yeah, look, they just set a franchise record in assists the other day, right? Like if that doesn't and yes, it's the Pistons, but
sure.
There have been lots of times in the history of this franchise where they've played teams like the Pistons and not gotten 44 assists. So, as an indicator of, buy-in and trying to run the system against a weaker defense and stuff. Again, this one's included. I figured both of your answers would be in the 1 to 1.7304 range.
How dare you try to get us to fire Darko, Blake?
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah. All right.
I mean, it's a thing where, like, for a team in this range, not quite rebuilding, but with limited expectations, the big picture stuff is way more important than the smaller things. And when the smaller stuff becomes more important, we'll be able to tell whether he is great or just adequate at those parts of the job.
Assuming he has a roster and we don't have to answer all those questions with, well, given the roster constraints,
but I mean, like, with any coach, not so much him. So I think it's just, unless he was like screwing up every game, like, I don't think it's a major thing to even think about at this stage.
Nope, but you got to build this segment with 1s and 4s on the scale. It's not a very good segment if all the answers are 2.5.
That's what happens. It's part of the name of Raptors Reasonableness. Like, I think I would expect 2.5s for the Reasonableness.
Yeah.
No, that's the SSRI scale.
Oh, very good. Eric, last one for you quickly before we let you go here. Your concern level that last night Cody Rhodes named Randy Orton the last member of his team for Survivor Series War Games. And Randy Orton he was put on the shelf by another member of that team, Jey Uso.
I don't know if this is going to go well for everybody.
Yeah.
I think Seth Rollins' next challenger is coming from the face group in the Survivor Series. And, he seems like he's just an odd character to trust after a long layoff. That's what I'll say. So from a face, from the good guys' perspective, and especially our guy Sami Zayn, 4.96.
Yeah, it's pretty high. I almost had to do a concern index of the fact that we're over a month into the show and I still don't know where the camera is to put up a number. But we can survive. Survivor Series on.
Where's the hard camera?
Yeah, Survivor Series on Sportsnet Plus this weekend, by the way. Eric Koreen of The Athletic, thanks so much for taking the time out, buddy.
Great chatting with you guys. Be well.
Eric Koreen of The Athletic, formerly of Raptors Reasonablists.
Y'all really love wrestling like that. This is nice.
I just like to sprinkle it in. Look, we're a WWE partner here at Sportsnet.
Sure.
We gotta push that stuff.
We
gotta give away golden tickets. Will Lou Wonka, and
that's right. Come on down. No, do not come on down. All right, we will not be opening the doors for anybody. Sorry, to be very clear. I did see one thing here because I know we have like 2 minutes here. But what's your concern index on this point right here, where Siakam's best offense coming outside of quote unquote the system, even if he is a really good passer from the post?
Yeah, so I mean, this is the discussion on Twitter or YouTube or whatever every time Pascal has a pretty good game from the post, and his comments after Friday's game. When we kind of asked him about that and said, the numbers back up that it's been pretty effective. My concern level is low with this one. I would say a 2. Obviously it would be great if everyone's offense was coming within the flow of things, but like Scotty's best offense has often come from either him taking guys into the post or operating standard pick and roll, right? Yeah. Like no team runs the same offense for 48 minutes. In Pascal's case, if he was, if they were completely clearing out, forcing a post entry, emptying out one side, and he went to work and turned it over a bunch or shot poorly, I would be more concerned. But it has, on a points per possession basis, including when he passes out of the post, been one of their most effective plays. So I think as long as this team and this franchise prioritizes some level of winning alongside the development, the concern level there is pretty low. Now, the long-term question of, is Pascal part of this or not? My concern level is higher by the day because the closer you get to the trade deadline, the closer that gets to a 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I don't know. Part of my concern is if the best play that you have is outside of the system, I might have some concerns about the system. But that's Well, we'll see on how that goes. Honestly, I do appreciate
man,
that
we
they
know
have a
s-
vision.
Yeah,
I
like
do appreciate they have a vision. That's all I'm saying. But
yeah, and it's important.
does
It's
seem ironic.
important foundational stuff, and it's
Yeah.
stuff you want everyone to be able to do and buy into and execute. And like I said, there are the pass numbers, the assist numbers. Even though the offense hasn't been very good yet, those things all suggest yes, they're learning, they're picking it up, they're committed to it.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. But I think the way I framed it, kind of in my piece when I wrote up Pascal's post up stuff is, plays like that, plays like Scotty clearing out for a standard pick and roll so he can get a switch and attack. Those are the things that can, if you're trying to develop long term and win short term, those are the kind of plays that can maybe bridge those two ideas for now.
Right. It's fair. Okay, we're going to take our last break. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou. Continue to be joined by co-host Blake Murphy. And it's time now for Between the Lines, brought to you by Brett Rivers. Take a chance. Blake, what's it looking like tonight?
The Raptors are 1.5-point underdogs at the Orlando Magic. Over under set at 215.5. Some relevant background info here. The Raptors will be without Thad Young, who's still dealing with an illness. Christian Koloko, of course, and all of their two ways are still with the 905. On the Magic side, Wendell Carter Jr. and Markelle Fultz are out, and a couple guys who aren't in the rotation are down with the Osceola Magic. Or Osceola. I don't know the way you pronounce that city's name, but
Is that really where they're at now?
yeah,
Okay.
they changed their name from Lakeland.
Lakeland was a lot easier to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Osceola or Osceola,
Anyway,
Areola, whatever.
yeah, that's the French goalkeeper. Actually though, but yeah, I mean, look, listen, as we have talked about throughout the show, like we have very similar teams, very similar strengths and weaknesses. And so what you're going to see is probably a defensive matchup, right?
Certainly, yeah. So the Raps are 24th in overall offense, 29th in half-court offense. The Magic are 25th in offense, 27th in half-court offense. So two bottom 7 offenses overall, two bottom 5 half-court offenses, and two top 10 defenses. The Magic are ranked 3rd in defense, and the Raptors are 7th right now. So two teams that have done a really good job defensively. The one area there's maybe an edge for the Raptors is, despite having a lesser record, is the Raptors are really good both ways in transition. The Magic have not turned all these turnovers and defensive rebounds into transition buckets at all. Raptors get about 7 fast break points more per game, even though the Magic get more defensive rebounds and turnovers.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. I did watching the film. I did see Jalen Suggs missing a lot of transition opportunities.
Yeah.
But he's also like playing at 150 miles per hour at all times.
Yeah, he's
The guy really
you watched the
slowed down a
Pacers
bit.
game where he was on Tyrese for chunks of it and stuff. Yeah, Suggs is still really good defensively.
He really is. Yeah.
It just, I don't know, man. Are you Alex Caruso, which is still a really good piece,
Yeah.
but maybe you're the number 5. Are you the number 5 pick on Alex Caruso? I think that was the comparison Skeets used yesterday.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. I actually don't mind that. Everyone's got to play a bit of a role. I think once you get into the league, it doesn't really matter where you were picked.
Right.
You just find something that you do well. But yeah, it is interesting that he's quickly bought into being a role player, being able to play a specific role. I think what's interesting too is like watching this team. They're gonna both need to find ways to score on each other because both teams have really good rim protection. Both teams have really good wing forwards who can guard the other team's wing forwards. We've mostly seen Pascal only score around the basket.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious in terms of this matchup, how do you think Pascal should look at the attack?
Yeah, it'll depend a little bit who they stick on him. And Goga Bitadze is not the league's best rim protector, but they've done a pretty good job defensively when he's out there. Yeah, he's averaging a block and a half a game. The Magic are kind of the inverse of the Raptors, where the Magic allow teams to get into the paint a little bit more, but they defend at the rim way better. And what that opens up is those kind of floater range shots, those Dennis Schroeder push shots, Jakob Poeltl catch on the roll and immediately push shot, the Gary Trent elbow stuff that's been available to him so often, that's there against the Magic because they're prioritizing the rim. Whereas the Raptors, they do a little bit better of a job keeping you away from the rim, but they don't protect the rim as well when you get there. So that's something I think if Pascal goes in there looking for more of that, 6 to 12 foot range stuff, that's going to be there for him a little bit more than the stuff at the rim. The other thing is, and this will apply to Scotty too, but we haven't seen Scotty struggle with it quite as much. They're going to have a ton of size to throw at Pascal. Like if it was one-on-one cleared out, like he can beat Paolo, but Paolo's also 6'10", and like he's not good defensively yet. But when you're that big, you're at least doing something with your size. And they bring Jonathan Isaac off the bench, who, like, he can't do anything offensively anymore, but he is still like an all-world defender. He's really good defensively. And I'd imagine when he comes in, he'll probably actually see Scotty more early on, because Isaac comes off the bench and Scotty will be running those bench units. But he's someone to watch out for as well. I do think Pascal, given what he's struggled against offensively at times, this is a bit of a tough matchup for him.
Yeah, I think because of those reasons, for me, the key player here might be Dennis Schroeder. Like, I think offensively, where the Raptors may have an edge over what Orlando does is the fact that Dennis is better than those guards that they have there. That's not to say that, Cole Anthony can't come in and do a good job. Or
I mean, their starting backcourt, though, averages 4.2 assists total. Between Anthony Black and Jalen
a whole
Suggs.
Shelvin Mack?
Yeah, like they average 17 points and 4.2 assists as a duo.
Yeah. This is going to be tough. I think I will probably, I'm always going to lean towards Raptors, but I do think the Raptors are a slightly better team than Orlando, even though with Orlando having a better record than the Raptors so far. But I will take the under. Like, I actually will see this game being kind of, difficult, groggy of a game. It's probably going to come down to things like, which team can limit their turnovers as well, and also which team can, secure the defensive rebounds too.
And the Orlando Magic do lead the league in forcing turnovers, so the Raptors have to be extra careful. That was Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Take a chance. Will, here's a question for you. Given Orlando's lack of shooting, so they're one of the only teams in the league shooting worse on threes than the Raptors, 33.0% to Toronto's 33.6%. I know that the Raptors have scaled back their level of aggression with traps and things like that against a team that struggles so much to shoot the three, and that'll have the ball in the hands of a guy like Paolo Banchero a lot more. And like we said, the starting backcourt of Anthony Black and Jalen Suggs have just not been huge offensive threats. Is tonight a night where you might dust off some of what they did well last year and be a little bit more aggressive getting the ball away from Paolo and Franz?
No, I think for me, the key should just be like the Raptors need to make sure we always have help at the rim. Not that these guys always get to the rim, but I do think that, you'll live with mid-range looks from both those guys. You'll definitely live with it if they want to bomb away from three. I mean, who knows? Maybe they get hot or not, but obviously the numbers are pretty poor, as you mentioned. But yeah, just make sure you have obviously help at the rim at all times. The Raptors have been on and off sometimes. Sometimes they really come to play, and sometimes they wait till the fourth quarter to try to make a huge comeback. And yeah, I mean, I think for me that the priority should be to protect the rim. That's why it's going to be a huge game for Jakob as well. But I mean, look, listen, this Orlando team is kind of unpredictable right now. Like they're playing a lot of guys that, like, I don't think a lot of people would have expected Goga Batadze to play like starting
they're
level minutes.
Confident right now too. Like that win against the Pacers. I know they had beat the Bulls in 2 consecutive games, so they're on a 3-game winning streak here, including one in the in-season tournament. Like, maybe where the Bulls are doesn't mean anything to you, but that was a Pacers team that is 3rd in the league in offense and was like maybe the most fun, most exciting team coming in that game. And I know it was high scoring, but that was mostly because of the pace it was played at. That was almost the worst night Indiana's had all season offensively. Like, Orlando really frustrated them.
Yeah, and that's a huge testament to them because, Indiana is an amazing offensive team in general. Really quickly before we go, because they have so many of these prospects that they've accumulated over the years, outside of Paolo and Franz, who everyone knows about already, who's your favorite? Like, who's your 3rd favorite Orlando Magic prospect?
I want to say Caleb Houston for the Canadian element, but he's really not playing much, even though they could use that shooting. I'd probably say Anthony Black. I just think, I don't think I don't know if he's a point guard long term, but he's 6'7" and uses that length really well. Obviously has enough point guard skill to have been drafted as a guard. Probably shouldn't be starting yet, and that's more about the Markelle Fultz injury. But I like his long term outlook.
Yeah. He, in addition to looking like a Nickelodeon star, he also is a really, really electric prospect. I loved his athletic metrics going to the draft. But anyway, that does it for us today. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe and please rate and review the show. Thanks once again to Jesse Mermuys, Eric Koreen, producer and co-host Alex Wong, Blake Murphy, board producer Derek Brandale, Jane Wilson, Davis Sis, Jared Manatad for helping behind the scenes. We'll talk to you tomorrow.